guys. Welcome to the Lioness Method, the podcast for business owners, rebel leaders, and world changers. And I'm your host, Maritza Sue. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, so I'm so excited. Today we are going to be speaking with this divine human being, Emilia Ann. And she is an artist and creator, and also the founder of the Divine and Human, which is becoming fully alive through creativity and surrender with Emilia Ann. So during her meditation in June of 2019, Emilia got the intuitive nudge to commit to herself and to her growth in an entirely different way, to create something every day for 100 days. That's a long time, guys. Over 500 days later, she's still creating every day, from dance and movement, poetry and short stories, videography and video editing, songwriting, cartooning, painting, doodling, cooking, graphic design, collages, stick art, macrame, embroidery, martial arts, digital art, and photoshopping. I'm tired just reading this, girl. Skits, learning how to sing and play the guitar, photography, and spoken word pieces. Now she's taking all that she has learned, coupled with her empathetic and energetic sensitivities, to help others to activate their creativity, to assist in their own brilliant unfolding and the discovery of magic. Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful.
I'm like all buzzy just hearing it. I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah, like oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, this person sounds amazing. Oh wait. Oh my gosh, but you truly are an amazing human being, and you have so many beautiful talents. And I'm really excited to take a deep dive into what you're doing right now, and getting to know a little bit more about you as a businesswoman, because you and I have been friends for a few years now, really a sisterhood. I love you so much as a sister. So this is truly an honor to be able to learn more about your new business and the things that you are learning as an entrepreneur and as an amazing creator. Because I have had the honor also of watching your unfoldment in your creative journey, and it's been so expansive and beautiful. And I thought that our listeners would benefit so much from learning a few things about your process and how, as entrepreneurs, they can bring more creativity into their life. Because one of the things that I hear all the time from my clients is that they don't have time for creativity, but they have a book that's waiting to unfold inside them, or they want to paint or do something creatively to express themselves in all the millions of ways we just listed that you're executing now. So it's so wonderful. So I would love to ask you about your business. So who do you serve, and how do you serve them?
Well, it's interesting. Like I was when you invited me to be on this podcast, I was just like, I know it's typical to do a podcast when you have like something very concrete to offer, right? I'm in a transition phase at the moment, a little bit, in that we talked about the commitment to creativity, and I'm actually in the last 10 days or so of the year-long commitment of doing something creative every day. In that and in that process, there have been so many ideas for what's next. And so what I have been doing is hosting groups, small groups of people, and helping them tap into their creativity. I kind of spontaneously started I created a course from scratch last April. I guess that's the way it works, right? Is you just kind of you have a little bit of a spark, and normally I don't get the full idea before it starts, or before like I have to take the first step towards it. And so and it, like, everything unfolds with each other too. So the more I do creative stuff, the more the next steps in like how to show up for other people show up as well. So
I
it's actually,
love that, by the way. If we can just explore that just for one
we
second.
totally can, because that's actually what I wanted. I was like, we should talk about
Yeah.
this.
Oh my gosh, that point that you just brought up is where everybody gets stuck, I feel like, is you don't have to know what the next step is. You just have to have the idea and then allow it to unfold. So talk a little bit more about that for a second.
So if I've learned anything over the last more than a year, is that well, one thing is different ideas like come into the world differently too. So sometimes there's a sensitivity to like, oh, this idea comes out this way versus this idea wants to come into the like manifestation this way. But very, very rarely do I have a complete vision and then are just the executor of the vision, which I know is like anti most things that have ever been taught. Like there's always like the 5-year plan, or the, like, oh, you need to know step by step everything to take a step forward, which is actually, I mean, I've just never successfully implemented anything in that way. And usually that's like the block to getting something started. So, and it just becomes really obvious when you're applying it to creativity. So if I try to sit down and come up with like a whole painting in my head first before I start, I will never start.
It's way too intimidating, right? Oh my God.
Or the other thing is like your mind can come up with so many beautiful ideas of things, but then if you have a very specific vision ahead of time, there's almost a loss of like I feel my spirit dampen if I'm just the robot that's supposed to execute something that I came out and like came up with in my head. So because some of the biggest magic is showing up and then letting it reveal itself to you, or being able to tune into each moment and figure out or really feel into what feels right to be next. And often it has nothing to do with what the original vision was.
Oh my God.
And then the other funny thing about that too is like starting with if you're waiting until you have everything figured out first, often in the execution of it, you end up running into perfectionism and blocks in that way, because you're like, oh, this isn't what I saw in my head, I'm not doing it right, and then you miss the magic of being present with yourself and actually accessing the creativity that allows you to bring something in to the world that is really different and unique and has an energy to it. You know, I heard someone say recently, again, like, if you had a headache when you made the painting, someone's going to get a headache looking at it.
There's transference in there somewhere.
Yeah, and so if you have a headache making your business, then people are probably going to get headaches as your clients.
Oh my gosh, that's a great point.
So there's just so much. There's so much in like the frequency or the energy or the emotion that you're tapping into when you're creating. I don't know if that answered your question, but it felt nice to say.
No, it does. It answers it. But it brings up another question, because what I hear from you in the way that you're describing your process is a lot of feminine flow coming through. And I think for, a lot of women, of course, a lot of women that I work with that are business owners, entrepreneurs, they have to wear a very masculine hat most of the time. So they have a lot of masculine energy in their body. So the beautiful way that you describe your creativity, the way it's flowing through, are very feminine qualities, and they're very beautiful. And I think most women would agree that that's something that we can connect more with in order to be in a place of creation and allow that flow to kind of come through us. Um, what are some of the challenges that you had to overcome to kind of get into that really flowy space? Because I know from being your friend that we have studied a lot of different things together. So, what has been your path to overcome some challenges?
Yeah, so if we're diving into at least my current experience of yeah, the like being in masculine energy versus being in feminine energy, and like how that changes how I approach not just creativity but like everything. Is I mean, I feel like I grew up definitely more inclined towards expressing um, masculinity and just like thinkingness, just in thinkingness and figuring out and yeah, coming from more of a place of logic and even just stress, right? Like,
That's right. Oh God, deadline,
yeah,
schedule.
yeah, and like efficiency was like my god, like everything. Like I worked at a law firm for on and off for 8 years and was very technically in the details.
Mhm.
Like ended up the head legal secretary, and which at the time, yeah, required a certain amount, or I believe at the time had required a certain amount of masculine, like just like okay, like uh, decisiveness, or I don't know. The lines blur like when you meet them back up at the top between the masculine and the feminine. So I'm just kind of like generalizing a little bit, but a couple of years ago, um, like through meditation and through certain books and just friendships, and like when information's supposed to come into your life, it just kind of finds its way, and sometimes it like from every direction, right? Um, so there was from multiple sources an awareness that um, tapping into more feminine energy was going to be really healing for me,
Mhm.
um, and that actually a lot of what I kind of had like spun myself out on masculine energy, or like even like a masculine spiritual path, and just like really having it be pretty heady. And one of the like prescriptions I received was to be more creative. And what has really supported that is even as simple as like certain breathing patterns, and meditative practices. But really, creativity is like where I feel it the most, and in just being in more of a receiving space, and tapping into those energies of fulfillment and like joyfulness, and enthusiasm, that an appreciation of beauty. It's just like something that seems to unfold itself. But it's definitely been, like anything. There's ups and downs and moments where like there's still like getting stuck in the head, and then just a reminder of like, oh, okay, like recenter,
How do you make
yeah,
that trip? How do you make that? Let's explore that just for a
yeah,
second. Sorry to interrupt. So, how do you make that trip from here to here? Because I think for a lot of people, that is a long way,
it's
right?
a very long way. It's one of the
Yes.
longest things,
Yes.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. um Well, there's so many practices out there that are supposed to help with that for sure. Um, at the moment, just taking moments to I had said like a specific breathing pattern, and the one that I find like tends to release tension in my body, or like allow the energy to flow in more of a surrendered way, is just intending, and like usually I close my eyes, so, but just intending certain muscle groups to relax. So often it feels like tension is stored in like the throat and the jaw. And often like that's anger, and that can happen. Like I feel like this is this is just mine, but I feel like
I'm
um
sure nobody else listening right now has ever felt anger in their
no,
job.
no.
We're the only women on earth.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But just I find that after being in more like masculine energy states for a long time, or feeling, or having, how do you say that? So, uh, not being able to express the feminine parts in the way that I would have liked to, or it's like it was like there's a part of you that gets shuffled off, um, in the desire to be an entrepreneur, or to be independent, or to be like there's definitely an art to being able to embody both qualities. um,
Definitely. And even I think an art to learning how to embody just being ourselves, right? And
yeah.
being comfortable in our own skin, which is something that I know that you've talked a lot about in the past, in your own podcasts and blogs, about just being able to just be in your own skin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just an ongoing process. Like, and but what's beautiful? Okay. Oh, ooh, so many things to say. Okay, what's beautiful is that, just looping back to what I said at the beginning, is like when you, and I feel this, it's obvious in creativity and in everything. It's like when you expand in one area, you expand in all areas, right?
Amen to that.
And
Yeah.
so, um, on a very concrete level, it was very obvious to me, if I expanded in my singing ability, I also expanded in my ability to communicate through painting, or like to communicate. And so, like, if I was stuck in one area, um, I just expanded in a different area, and then often the other area would get unstuck. And so it's almost, but it then you actually realize that in expanding in singing and painting and all these different creative pursuits, you're also expanding in your ability to simplify your life,
Mm.
and to be organized and to be loving and to like, or to see clearly what the next steps in your business are, or like,
Mhm.
um, to make decisions. And it's like, it feels like almost like weird video grade or video game upgrades, like, or
Love
like,
that.
oh, like I'm
Unpack that for
yeah.
a second, if you don't like, let's back up just one second. Then you're getting all kinds of downloads. We are experiencing Amelia Ann's creative process right now, and it's amazing, and I love it. I want to ask you because if and people can find your videos on your website, or is it on YouTube, or both?
It's kind of, again, it's kind of all over the place at the
All
moment.
over.
So everything is very findable on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if you
Yeah.
guys, I'm going to reference her videos. So you have to go and check out her beautiful interpretive dance videos. They're absolutely breathtaking. And I am so curious to know, because you have all of these different ways to express yourself. We said photography and writing and dance and painting. There's just so many different mediums that you use. And you're talking about kind of getting unstuck in one area, kind of creates the flow in all the other areas. So where do you find the inspiration? Where does that come from?
Um, well, I have multiple answers to this. I have multiple answers to this.
All of them.
Okay. So, what has been obvious to me, especially lately, is like sometimes You don't know what makes a recipe good until you take an ingredient out that you find out was really important. Like, you're just like, this does not taste the same. And meditation is actually huge. And I've gone through phases and different ways of meditating for years and years and years. And I mean, the whole, you said it at the beginning in the kind of intro, but the whole idea to do something creative every day actually came from a meditation. Um, and at the beginning of the process, and in like the first 100 days or so, I was meditating very consistently, sometimes even like 2 hours a day. It would fluctuate, 20 minutes to 2 hours.
I think I
But
remember that vaguely. Yeah.
yeah, and then uh, along the way, I was just like, oh, but I'm connecting in this way, or I'm connecting in this way, and I don't. Maybe like I'll let go of that for a little bit, and I've definitely gone through phases where things didn't flow as easily as other times. But there's also part of me that thinks that's part of the process, you know?
Mhm.
So I'm not necessarily saying it's wrong, but I'm noticing I just restarted meditating more again in that more like, no, I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to do at least
More
30 minutes.
intentional almost. Like it's gonna be
Yeah.
part
We'll
of
just start the day with the 30 minutes. And there was, and I don't know if no, I might have made this up. I don't think I heard this from anywhere. If I did from someone, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty
straight
sure.
from Amelia Ann.
Yeah, I think. But in the meditative practices, especially at the beginning, and now again, like bringing it back in, was was the relaxation. Like relaxing the nervous system.
Mhm.
I started to say I was like relaxing the muscles in our jaws and our throat, but then also solar plexus, like this
Right.
area
That's a trouble in
that is
a lot of
yeah, so related to our ability to breathe and possibly to surrender. I kind of call this the surrender point, right?
people. That. That's a whole other can of worms.
um,
Surrender.
So, and then also there's like a group of muscles that just go like all the way across, like just below your belly button through your hips. And to me, like especially relaxing, like it's like relaxing all of these muscles down the central channel, allows energy to flow and to be in more of that feminine receiving state.
Mhm.
And so after I've relaxed, or kind of, and really just like, and it's just through intention, right? Like,
Mhm.
like you're just paying attention to those different parts
Mhm.
of your body and just like feeling energy flowing. And the more you notice, and the more sensitive you'll be to it. But
Mhm.
um, once you're in a more relaxed receiving state, then I had definitely 110% had an overarching intention, or almost a prayer, to be an open channel for the divine.
Ooh, I
Uh,
like that. That's so juicy right there.
Open channel for the divine, and originally it was like for creativity, an open channel for creativity and the divine, and I would tune into that, and I would actually sometimes even like ask the universe what it wanted to create through me today.
Mm.
Like, what wants to be expressed, um what really is nourishing for me too, because it's like, it's not just what the universe wants, it's also like a like, I don't think the universe wants me to be just like a slave and being like painting and crying at the same time. Like, it's like, well, the universe
Doesn't really
wanted
sound
this
fun.
painting, and so now I have to paint
Although
it.
that could be a very therapeutic workshop, paint and cry with some breath
Paint
work.
and cry for sure. For sure. Um,
We're
I don't
just kidding.
know.
We're just kidding for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, in asking again, there was just I find myself, everyone talks about doing uh, like cleanses of the body or cleanses of their physical space, but very less often do people talk about cleansing your mind of uh, ideas or even you know because you can have like creative to-dos, right, too, like this again, and this kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier too, of just like if you have too sometimes if you have too much of a plan, it feels um, you miss out on some of the magic. And so
It's almost like it's a little bit too confined, right? And then
correct,
what I
yeah,
hear you saying is that we kind of need to do a little spiritual housekeeping, if you will, throughout our life, so we can
mhm,
make space for more creativity,
absolutely.
creative ideas and things.
Absolutely. And one of the things that's so funny to me that I've noticed, because I have been working with small groups of people over the last year, and taking them through the creativity course that I um, made. It's weird to say I made it. Sometimes it just feels like the universe makes it. Like I was like,
I
I think I did it. I did. I made the video.
own it. I am the creatrix of
Yeah.
this time
Um,
and
but
human.
I've seen multiple times that often, if someone hasn't been creative for a while, some of the times the first thing that they come to that they want to make is something that they like an idea from like 20 years ago. They're like,
Cool.
but the interesting thing is it's actually kind of a block.
Mm.
Um, so they're just like, oh, I have this poem that I wanted to write in high school, and now I'm going to write it. And you're like, okay, like, are you sure?
Like,
It's been on your to-do list for 20 years. Are you sure you shouldn't just like breathe and see what's next? But it's weird. It's almost like it's an obstacle.
what do you
From
recommend in that case for that person, that instead of focusing on what might
like
be,
1,000 old project ideas.
yeah.
Like, yeah. I have now like started kind of an informal practice of releasing ideas.
Mhm.
Um, and because they'll sneak up on you too, like they'll build back up, and then all of a sudden you're 30 ideas behind, and then and then you become just like the executor of the things, and there's not the aliveness to it
Mhm.
anymore. Um, and yeah, so sometimes, I mean, there's like multiple ways to
Yeah.
do that.
So
It's just an
what would, like,
intention.
for
Yeah,
instance, what would be the first step, like in
yeah.
in the program? Like, what would you have them start? Like, where would they even begin to tap
Mm,
into creativity?
mm. It starts with the intention. It starts with the intention, because an intention organizes everything, right?
Mhm.
And especially if it is um, like a spiritual or like a growth intention, uh, where you're looking to embody a quality of consciousness.
Mm.
Um, and so, yeah, though the frequency of that type of intention is going to change um, the ideas that you have access to, um, the way it unfolds, the way your actions unfold. It also changes the amount of power and energy that you have access to actually complete the thing.
Mhm.
Um, and because so the intention to and so the first step is everyone does come up with an intention, right? And
Okay.
so often it could be anything. It could be to experience more freedom in their expression, you know, and so or to feel more playful and light. Um,
Like, who doesn't need that? We all need
yeah,
more.
or self-compassion, right? So like to
Mhm.
practice self-compassion through creativity, um, or yeah, and all of these different, everyone has kind of their own flavor for what
Mhm.
feels resonant for them. But that intention is what carries you through everything, and it also helps you tune into what is in alignment with the intention and what isn't. So um, if it was my intention to be an open channel for creativity and the divine, and then I find myself with a long list of to-dos that I'm just executing, like again, like a robot. I'm like, oh, is this in alignment with the intention? No, like, oh, it becomes obvious then that um, even though sometimes it's scary to let go of ideas,
Mhm.
'cause you start to identify with them. It's just like, but just like taking them. Sometimes I like, every once in a while, I'll write out a list of all of the ideas, and I'll write at the top like, I surrender to the universe.
There's that word again, surrender.
I
Oh my
surrender
goodness.
to the universe. Like, if I'm like, I surrender all of these collaboration ideas, like I have a long list of people that I'd love to like make projects with, and like I'm like, okay, like collaboration with this person and this person, this photo idea, this dance video, this like this poem, and then I'll like throw them all on the list, and
Mhm.
just the act of putting them on the list of like, I surrender this to the universe. If it's supposed to happen, it will. But also like, I don't need to like hold so tightly
Mhm.
the ideas. And
No, I love that. If we can unpack that just for a second, because I think there's so many parallels to if you're speaking to like a business owner or entrepreneur that wants to tap into this creativity. Um,
mhm,
and there's so many parallels to their business, right? Because I think as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we can get really stuck on ideas and they might not always work, right?
yeah,
So I love
yeah,
this concept that you're talking about of just putting it all down, like almost kind of doing a brain dump, so to speak, and then just letting it go, right? Letting it go. And I love the way that you speak so much about the presence in your body and allowing things to flow, and that being kind of your process, because I think that's what a lot of people are missing right now, right?
mhm,
And also just in the world that we're living in right now, like we need all these beautiful things that you're mentioning, like creating more compassion within ourselves and empathy, and just being more in tune with our natural rhythms as women and as human beings.
mm. I love that. And what you said definitely sparked another layer of again, relevance to business, but also to creativity. Is like, after doing something creative every day for that long, it becomes obvious that there's like, each project is like a whole universe in itself, like, right? Like,
Like literally
um,
500 different universes.
it's crazy. so, so,
Mhm.
um, so how to explain this? So, for example, like if a feeling came up in my body that I wanted to express, like I was like, oh, like I've really been feeling this like nagging sense of oh man, like the downloads happen so fast. Okay, hold on. Like I've been feeling this like nagging sense of kind of like indecision, and then like, but I really want, to be more decisive. Like if there's like there's if there's something I want to express, and it's like this funny complex emotion, I like feel into it. I'm like, okay, I have this thing that wants to be expressed. All of a sudden, when I look at it, I'm like, oh, it could be expressed in any single medium, right? Like you could express that in a dance, you could express it in a painting, you could express it as a poem or a short, like spoken, like you could, then it like ripples out. You're like, okay, there's 1,000 different options for like how this one thing could be expressed.
Mhm.
And then you add another layer of like another dimension of, it could be expressed very simply, or it could be expressed extremely complicated. So it could be as small as like, I scribbled it on a piece of loose leaf paper as one sentence, or I made a documentary about it. Like, and so there's always this like, okay, like what's the flavor of its expression, or the medium, and then also what is the energy level, what's the output, what's the like how deep do you want to go with this idea, and and when you start to tap into creativity, you'll find that ideas are endless, right? There's no shortage of them. And so it becomes extremely important to be more in tune with yourself, your own energy levels, what really sparks joy for you, in like Marie Kondo words, what really feels nourishing to pursue and to express, because the possibilities are literally endless, right? And so, and it's the same with business, right? Because you could be like, oh yeah, like I could make an online course, I could really dive into expressing through Instagram, I could really dive in, like I could do this, I could do this, and you could like write forever with like different ways that your business could unfold.
And I think that's how people kind of end up in analysis paralysis, right? And then
Oh,
they,
for sure. Yeah.
you said
Yeah.
earlier, they just freeze because they're like, oh no, too many options.
Too many things. Yes. And then, yeah. And if you're trying to do too many things at once, then you're just tired and you haven't really put enough energy into one thing for it to gain momentum. Yeah. So,
so how do you gain that clarity to decide what medium you're going to use for any given project?
Yeah. Sometimes it is just a process of like tuning in. Sometimes it's asking, like, again, you're getting a little out there, but sometimes it's asking the idea what it wants, like would you like to be a poem?
I love
that. Would you like to be this? But yeah, some of them are very obvious right off the bat. They seem to have like a life of their own. And the other times it's how my body reacts to the ideas, right? So like if I'm feeling into something and I'm like, oh, I could do that, and I could really write a whole long thing about it, and like I feel like I could actually sometimes even feel my throat tighten, or like the sinking feeling in your body where you're just like, no, I actually really don't want to do that.
You're like, that's not it. If your body is rejecting the idea,
don't do it. Don't do it. It doesn't, and that's the funny thing is it doesn't matter how brilliant of an idea it is. It could be the best idea ever, but if it feels like it makes you want to like vomit, then
not from excitement, but actually making you sick.
Yeah, actually making you sick. Yeah, then maybe not that one, or maybe not that day. Sometimes in surrendering projects or surrendering ideas, they come back, right? But often they only come back after you've surrendered them. So, or again, the clarity comes after the surrender, not before.
I hear so many parallels between your creative process and also breath work, because I know we're both breath work facilitators, and we do two different styles, but it essentially brings us to the same place of clarity, right? So, and breath work can almost be, or is, and maybe this is a question I could ask you, is that kind of where spirituality ties in for you in your business, in your process? Is breath work kind of that tool, or is there other things? Like, how does the spirituality tie into your business? Because I hear a lot of that thread coming through in what you're describing in your process.
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, the breath is more of a tool. There's like multiple layers to this. Okay, so again, yes. Okay, so yes, spirituality for me is interwoven with everything. Right? And it didn't necessarily start out that way. It unfolded slowly over time. So it's not like you go from zero to like constant awareness of all the things. But yeah, when there's an intention to heal, or to, again, experience greater self-compassion or compassion for others, to forgive, um, or
Gratitude.
yeah, all of those beautiful qualities, like,
Mhm.
um, again, those intentions organize everything, and often they feel like a slow burn, like I mean, I remember probably almost 10 years ago, just like being so jazzed about the idea of being in the state of unconditional love, right?
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, that's what I want. Like, um, or even just like this state of inner freedom, right?
Mhm.
For probably 5 years, like every week we did a little mastermind with my family where we supported each other and stuff. And like my intention every week was like inner freedom, inner freedom, inner freedom. And yeah, it seems like the in, in the world, what happens like when you start to like tap into intention, it like life used to be organized by like affecting external circumstances, or creating businesses, like I owned a photography business, and like that was like the focus, and like the spiritual path was to help me get better at business,
Mhm.
or to get better at life in some way. And at some point, it's like the intention seems to flip, and then everything else seems to support the intention.
Mhm.
So, and then life gets really weird, like interesting, because then every aspect of what you're doing can be in support of those bigger intentions. Uh,
Mhm.
and again, in creating a business or creating anything, beautiful, like good relationships or whatever,
Mhm.
um, those all now serve the intention, and it completely change like it releases urgency about needing everything to like work the way that you think it's supposed to, or like or even to be conventionally successul in the ways that people view things,
Mhm.
because you
Well,
have
that's
like
a whole other topic, right?
because you have an overarching goal of just like, oh, like, yeah, filing my taxes is like pushing me up against like every single like
Yeah.
rebellious like,
Mhm.
like
Like
childhood
the
pattern
rebel
I
in me
have,
is
right?
like,
Yeah.
"No taxes."
Yeah, exactly. So, but then like if it's viewed that way, you're like, okay, like I don't like this, but I can feel I'm growing, or I can feel that there's an overarching thing of just like, well, if I feel through this a little bit more, maybe my life will improve in ways that I can't measure.
Mhm.
And it also seems that when you're tapping into those types of um, ways of being, um, the things that you create or the services that you provide resonate with people at a different level. Um,
Mhm.
and then people just like love you, and they want to hire, like they're just like, yes, like I want what like I want that. um,
Mhm.
and yes, so breath the breath is in support of that, and it just becomes like a normal thing to be aware of it,
Mhm.
um, or yeah, to just use it as a supportive tool along the way, you know. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Well, I know we're actually coming up on time pretty soon. So That went by really fast for having fun today. But I do have another big juicy question for you. So what is the biggest challenge with your business right now that if you were to resolve it would afford you more revenue, time, or freedom? Which I know we all love that freedom.
Biggest challenge. Yeah, I think it's asking for help.
Boy, I'm so shocked.
Yeah. You know, I feel like over the last year and a half, I've used creativity as a spiritual process, but also like as a way to work on creating things that I can share with other people as well. And like I love the creative process so much that yeah, when it comes to like uh, like self promotion, or just really putting things out there. But I'm also sensitive to like I think there's a time for everything, right? Like there's a time to go inward and really meet yourself and create like what, and then there's the time um, to allow it to bloom in a different way, right? So I think I'm shifting phases right now of like I've been like deep in the creating phase, and now like the next phase might be a little bit more out there, or a little bit more
More like strategic, maybe.
possibly.
Well,
um,
one of the things
yeah.
that I love about you is that you're such a talented person in general, but you really are a one woman show. I mean, even with these gorgeous dance videos that you've done, photography, like you are doing all the things on your own. So I think it's funny, or not funny, because I feel like this will resonate with a lot of people out there.
Mhm.
Asking for help is a part of leadership, even when you can do it all yourself, because literally you've been the sound person, the videographer, the editor, the photographer, the artist, the creator, the promoter, the marketer, right? So you've worn all these different hats. So maybe it is like the next, would you say that the next part of your evolution is learning to kind of outsource some of those things?
Yes, but it's funny. I'm like, oh, like, is it outsourcing the creative process? It's not outsourcing the creative process.
Not the creative part.
It's
Yeah.
outsourcing probably like marketing, marketing, or the more of like the dissemination of the stuff.
Okay.
And then again, uh, we haven't really talked about this, but like synchronicities also go up exponentially the more creativity you tap into. So like get ready for like that. Or just support coming in from other places. And so um, it's a really beautiful thing to think like while you're working and like really putting your whole heart into something. Sometimes there's like people over in like all of their different areas who are also working on things, but that they're in support of what you're doing. So for example, I feel like I've gone really deep into this process, but then I also have a group of friends like that, we touch base, but they're over there, but they're all over there starting their own publishing company, right?
Oh, cool.
And like they're like, but like they're just over there, they're just working. I'm not like in the day-to-day things, but I know that there's synergy happening, and that there's things happening in my support. And it's not like, so there is an awareness that I'm not alone.
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
or completely doing everything on my own.
Mhm. Well, and we really
Yeah, I
can't
feel like the universe
do it
conspired
all.
to support you kind of vibe. Sorry. What were you saying?
And we can't do it on our own. We're not meant to, right? I think there's a space of creation that should be ours, right? Uniquely ours, where we're expressing ourselves. And then I think the next level for a lot of business owners and just creators is learning how to then branch out and collaborate and to receive surrender, by your own words, to receiving help, right? The receiving the support, because I think that might even be hard for some of us recovering type A ladies, is to really allow that process, right? And I think it's so beautiful that you have explained receiving and as part of your creative flow. So it's also extends to the next part of evolving the business, right? And transforming that into collaboration and working with others and that synergy that you find. And I think that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really good. Yeah, receiving. Again, it's one of those things like if you're practicing receiving breath and receiving creative ideas, it's like the universe, or it feels like, your consciousness is like, all right, well, if you're receiving this much over here, it can't be this much over here. It has to like rise up to match it. And
Mm-hmm.
so like, when you expand in one area, you expand in all areas. So expanding and receiving, even if it's just like energy, or again, relaxation, it's all of a sudden it's like, okay, like your your receiving help has to like come match this now because the contrast is getting too big. Or even just like receiving monetary value for what you're saying. So like, but I think I just also want to say that like, the process of actually doing this is not always smooth. Like there's definitely moments where
Linear process, this creation thing.
it's just like, uh, when one area really expands a lot and the other hasn't yet, that's actually extremely uncomfortable. So like if you've expanded so much, but then you're still charging a very small amount of money per hour
Mhm.
for like your time, then like all of a sudden like you're just like there's the tension in your body because you haven't like, you know, breathed or received to match,
It's your
that area.
relationship with exchange. You have to, or you get to expand it, right? Can expand the container so you can receive more and in turn give more value.
For sure. For sure. So yeah, that's definitely a growth area for me. Like it, yeah. Then you go through phases, right? I used to like receive a lot, and then
Mhm.
like I went through some hard periods of time where like uh, I had a harder time charging money, and so now I'm like recovering and receiving. Yeah. So
Beautiful. Well, it's all an process of unfoldment, like you said. And we're coming up to the end. I'm so sad. I'm going to ask you one final question just to kind of take us out and summarizing everything. If there's one piece of advice that you could give our listeners, people that would want to just know, what it is to be able to express themselves in the way that you have, like you just being a creative force, what would that be? What's your one tip for creativity?
um, it's funny. The first thing that came into my mind doesn't sound like a tip, but it's just that like you've got this. Like you've got this. There's not like it's like inherent in you, right? And there's no like messing it up. There's no like perfect thing to do or to apply that will for sure work or for sure like there's no like one thing that's like 100% necessary, and it's just like it, yeah, like trust your process, like everything that's ever happened to you is perfect. and is like in support of your brilliant unfolding, right? So
I love that. That's so beautiful, sister. And it's also just get started, right? Just do it.
Yeah. No, don't try not planning for a little bit. Yeah, that's okay. That is one thing. It's just like, especially if you're someone who's always planned, like just make throwaway paintings. That's some advice that I've given people before too. It's like, you're stuck here. All right, do like a throwaway painting, and just like feel it and do the thing. So,
That's beautiful advice. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. Ooh, something's happening with my music. Talking about throwing caution to the curb. I'm like,
oh my God. That's what happens when you show up with that light, you also get like brilliant moments that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
That was hilarious. Well, that's my outro music, but we are just going to imagine the best outro music ever right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rose. This is so beautiful. You're a beautiful host. Yeah. Enjoy, everyone. Yeah.
And for those of you that are still listening, I appreciate you so much for being with us the whole time and to just having this conversation with us. And I'd love to hear from you. If you want to reach out to me at riss@narissasue.com, you can email me your questions. And you're also free to join my Wednesday night women's circle, which I have a breathwork circle every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. I do it as a love offering for the community, and you can join it by signing up at breathewithriss.com. And Emilia, would you like to share how our listeners can also reach you?
Yeah, for sure. So my website is emiliaann.com, which is EMILIAANN.com. There's a wait list there for if you want to join one of the next creativity groups. And also, you can sign up for email updates for things that are coming in the future, because that's definitely, there's a lot that's coming up that is not ready to be talked about. So
stay tuned. Stay tuned. She'll have more. And I'm going to drop all the links in the bio, and so you can check it out at the lionessmethodpodcast.com. All right, friends. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, live in gratitude and stay light.